Imagine sitting in a crowded living room, family on one side, friends across the table, colleagues leaning forward with expectant eyes. You make a choice, a career shift, a belief, a lifestyle decision, and suddenly you feel the invisible hand on your shoulder demanding, "Explain yourself. Why this career? Why this belief? Why are you, you?" Most people assume explaining ourselves is harmless, that it's polite, respectful, necessary. But what if that compulsion to explain isn't just a habit? It's a prison? What if the very act of explaining keeps you chained to a life that isn't truly yours? Today, we journey into the depths of Jungian psychology to uncover what really happens when you stop explaining yourself. Not just silence, not just rebellion, but transformation. This isn't about arrogance. It's not about shutting people out. It's about peeling back centuries of conditioning and discovering what it means to stand rooted in your authentic self. Welcome to Psychethos. Let's architect the mind. From the moment we're born, the world asks us questions. Why did you cry? Why did you do that? Explain yourself. These aren't just words, they're training. Each question plants a seed, that our value depends on justification, that acceptance must be earned, that belonging is conditional. Carl Jung believed these patterns weren't random. He called them the collective unconscious, ancient instincts passed down for survival. Think back to prehistory. Tribes huddled around fire, survival dependent on unity. To be cast out wasn't just loneliness, it was death. So the human psyche evolved strategies: conformity, justification, explanation. Fast forward thousands of years. We're no longer in caves, yet the old wiring persists. We explain not because our lives depend on it, but because our minds think they do. But here's the paradox. Explanations no longer bring connection. They bring conformity. They no longer open doors. They close them. Every time you justify a choice, you hand over a piece of yourself for approval. Every time you explain your belief, you dilute its power. And Jung warned, the more you explain, the further you drift from the authentic self, the eternal, unmasked you. Think back to your own childhood. Do you remember the first time you felt the heat of expectation? Maybe you broke something. Maybe you spoke out of turn. And suddenly, voices rose. Why did you do that? Your little brain scrambled for answers. Not truth, but safety. You learned that the right explanation could save you. The wrong one could punish you. This is how performance begins. Not as art, not as passion, but as survival. Now as adults, the performance continues. We don't explain to connect. We explain to defend. We don't justify to share. We justify to survive. But here's the question. What if survival has already been secured? What if the only thing left is to live? Think of explanations as invisible chains. Each one ties you to someone's expectation. Explain your career, chained to family pride. Explain your beliefs, chained to cultural approval. Explain your lifestyle, chained to social acceptance. Individually, the chains feel light, but together they weigh like iron. Jung's insight was radical. You can't discover the self by tightening the chains. You discover it by letting them fall. To survive society, Jung said, we wear a mask, the persona. It's not evil, it's necessary. The persona lets you smile at strangers, shake hands in boardrooms, play roles in family dramas. It's your social passport. But here's the danger. The mask begins to fuse to the face. You wake up one day and you're not sure where the persona ends, and you begin. Every day you shift roles. At work, you're professional, composed, sharp. At home, you soften, regress, maybe even become childlike. With friends, you're casual, humorous, agreeable. Nothing wrong with shifting. The problem begins when you explain every shift, every choice, every reaction. Why did you laugh at that? Why didn't you speak up? Why did you choose this over that? Constant editing, constant justifying, constant mask maintenance. Jung called this persona identification, when the mask consumes the wearer. And here's the tragedy. When you're lost in persona, you forget that behind the mask is someone who doesn't need to explain at all. The authentic self doesn't bargain for space. It doesn't justify existence. It simply is. Imagine walking into a room without explaining yourself. Not arrogance, not hostility, just presence. No disclaimers. No, I'm sorry, but no, what I really meant was just you, unaltered, unedited. That silence is a revolution, because the persona thrives on explanation. Without it, the mask slips, and the self begins to breathe. Beneath the persona lies another layer, the shadow. These are the parts of ourselves we hide: anger, desire, creativity, vulnerability. The shadow isn't evil, it's exiled, and every time you explain away a feeling, you push it deeper into the dark. Think of the last time you were angry. Did you explain it away? I'm not really mad, I'm just tired. I'm not upset, I just had a long day. That explanation is exile. Or think of your dreams. Did you justify them? I want to be a writer, but I know it's unrealistic. I'd love to travel, but my family would never understand. That justification is exile. Piece by piece, the shadow fills with everything you've explained away. Jung believed the path to wholeness, individuation, means integrating the shadow, not explaining it away. When you stop apologizing for your quirks, your boundaries, your instincts, you invite the shadow home. When you allow your anger to teach you, your creativity to move you, your vulnerability to soften you, you become whole, not perfect, not polished, but real. And reality, unexplained, unapologetic, has more power than any performance ever could. Here's the irony. The very parts you explain away hold the keys to your freedom. Your anger isn't a flaw. It's a signal of violated boundaries. Your desire isn't shameful. It's fuel for creation. Your vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the bridge to intimacy. Every explanation dulls the gift. Every silence sharpens it. To integrate the shadow is to stop defending yourself and start discovering yourself. Carl Jung gave us a word for the journey toward wholeness: individuation. It is not becoming perfect. It is not becoming society's version of successful. It is becoming you, entirely. Individuation begins when you stop seeking approval outside and start listening to the compass inside. Jung called this inner authority, a kind of rooted self-possession. Notice, this isn't arrogance. Arrogance shouts, "I'm always right." Inner authority whispers, "I know my path." When you explain yourself, you place your compass in someone else's hands. You ask them, "Is my direction acceptable?" But when you stop explaining, the compass returns to you. And suddenly, you realize you always knew the way. Picture yourself as a tree. When the winds of others' opinions blow, do you bend, break, twist into shapes that don't belong to you? Most people do. They explain, adjust, apologize, reframe, anything to survive the storm. But individuation means becoming rooted. Not rigid, rooted. You still sway, you still listen, but you no longer uproot yourself to please the wind. That is the power of stopping explanations. It's not silence, it's stability. Every step away from explanation is a step toward liberation. You begin to notice the difference between approval and alignment. Approval is borrowed, granted today, taken tomorrow. Alignment is earned, between your choices and your essence. Approval feels like applause. Alignment feels like peace. Which will you live for? Deep within, Jung said, we all carry both masculine and feminine energies. In men, the hidden feminine, the anima. In women, the hidden masculine, the animus. But culture rarely allows us to hold both. Society's divide men are taught, don't cry, don't show softness. Women are taught, don't be too ambitious, don't outshine. So we explain away half of ourselves. Men say, I'm not sensitive, I'm just logical. Women say, I'm not ambitious, I'm just trying to help. Every justification is a disowning. Every apology is a split. But Jung believed individuation requires both. When a man embraces his anima, he discovers intuition, creativity, tenderness. When a woman embraces her animus, she discovers strength, clarity, decisiveness. And here's the secret. These are not opposites. They are complements. Strength without tenderness becomes cruelty. Tenderness without strength becomes fragility. But together, they form humanity in full. When you stop explaining your complexity, you grant yourself permission to be whole. You can be strong and gentle, logical and intuitive, independent and connected. You are no longer bound by roles, no longer reduced by stereotypes. You become what Jung envisioned, a complete self. Beneath our personal stories lies something deeper, the collective unconscious, a shared reservoir of images, instincts, and patterns. Jung called these archetypes timeless roles that live in every human soul. The archetypal forces consider the archetypes: the sage, wisdom that doesn't need justification; the creator, innovation without apology; the rebel, challenge without explanation; the lover, connection without condition; the hero, courage without approval. When you stop explaining yourself, you align with these ancient forces. You no longer live as a fractured individual trying to prove worth. You live as a fully integrated being, connected to humanity's oldest story. Ask yourself, which archetype stirs within me right now? Do you feel the sage, tired of defending wisdom? Do you feel the rebel, ready to stand without explanation? Do you feel the creator, longing to make without apology? These forces don't need justification, they need expression. So what really happens when you stop explaining yourself? Everything. Relationships. Transformed without explanations, relationships shift from performance to presence. You no longer waste energy defending choices. Instead, you offer your authentic self. And the people who stay for you, not for the story you sell. Work transformed, without explanations, your work becomes meaningful. You're no longer climbing ladders to please others. You're building paths aligned with your own truth. Success is no longer applause. It's alignment, self-transformed. And within, you find peace. Because the war was never between you and others. The war was between you and your own need to explain. When that war ends, life begins. So I ask you, what would your life look like if you stopped explaining and started being? Would you speak differently, love differently, work differently, dream differently? Maybe everything you've been chasing isn't outside. Maybe it's been waiting beneath your explanations all along. If this spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share your thoughts below. What's the one thing you're ready to stop explaining? And if you want to keep journeying deeper into the architecture of the mind, subscribe to Psychothos. Together, we'll unmask, unchain, and uncover the self that doesn't need explanation.